In the capital of Panem, 18-year-old Coriolanus Snow struggles to keep up appearances as his once powerful family sinks into ruin. On the eve of the 10th Hunger Games, he is assigned a crucial task: to mentor one of the tributes. But when he discovers his protege hails from the impoverished District 12, Snow realizes this challenge will determine not only his destiny, but the legacy of his name. With scarce resources and his only weapon, he faces a dilemma that will test his ambition and morality. How far is he willing to go to survive? Part 1. The Snow Mask. The war left ashes, but it also left appearances. In the heart of the capital, an 18-year-old boy, Coriolanus Snow, clings to the facade of crumbling grandeur. He lives in the attic of a majestic building, though its cracked walls and empty refrigerator tell a different story. The Snow family has fallen from grace, but Coriolanus still believes in the phrase his grandmother repeats like a prayer: "Snows always land on their feet. Reaping day is coming." And with it, opportunity. The Academy has announced that the top students will mentor the tributes in the Hunger Games. It's no ordinary honor. It's a gateway to power, a chance for the Snow name to once again resonate in the halls of the elite. But the day begins with hunger, with cabbage soup and patched-up clothes, with a shirt of her father's, faded by time. The tigress, her cousin, and only ally, tries to refashion into something worthy. Tigress is her silent support, a young woman worn by need, but still brimming with ingenuity. She transforms the old into elegance and gives Coriolanus the most crucial tool: the illusion of wealth. "You're a genius," he says, eyeing the mended shirt, "and the best cousin in the world." Tigress smiles, exhausted but proud. It's more than fashion. It's survival. The ceremony at Havensby Hall brings together the 24 selected students. Coriolanus expects a strong, manipulable tribute that will make him shine in the eyes of Dr. Goal, the feared head of academic oversight. But fate is not in his favor. He is assigned a girl from District 12, Lucy Greybeard. "What?" he manages to say, unable to hide his contempt. District 12 has no history of victories. Lucy Gray is not what he expected. At the reaping ceremony, instead of screaming or crying, she sings. She sings with a voice that pierces everyone present like an ancient whisper awakening memories of a world that no longer exists. Her final gesture, draping a snake around her neck, is an act of defiance that breaks the routine of the spectacle. Something about her intrigues him. They take her to the Capitol Zoo, where the tributes are caged before the games. One cage for each. There, the first game begins, that of sympathy, spectacle, manipulation. Coriolanus decides he must make her win. Not out of mercy, but because his own future depends on it. Lucy Gray is his project, his strategy. But the capital is in crisis. People no longer watch the games with interest. The war has left scars. Dr. Gall wants to revitalize them. He wants more cruelty, more blood, more control. Coriolanus doesn't know it yet, but he is a key player in that experiment. When he visits Lucy Gray, she studies him with eyes the color of stagnant water. He tries to win her trust. "For what purpose?" she asks. "For you to come out of this alive," he answers without blinking. The relationship is built on fragile ground, filled with suspicion and need. While he sneaks her food, letters with advice, and teaches her how to speak like the capital, she returns the favor with a look of perpetual doubt. Can she trust him? Can he trust himself? But this is only the first mask. Beneath the ambition, Coriolanus begins to discover something darker. A subtle satisfaction in manipulating, in gaining influence, in being admired for the spectacle of death. And Lucy Gray isn't just a girl who sings. She's a survivor. An artist of ambiguity. Her songs hide clues. Her past is full of shadows. She's playing too. When the game's door opens, the tributes aren't the only ones entering the arena. Coriolanus Snow has already crossed an invisible line, and there's no going back. Part 2. Singing in the Harvest. The games haven't even begun yet, but the war is already underway. A subtle war, hidden in gestures, words, and silences. The battle for spectacle, for control. Coriolanus Snow discovers that his role as mentor isn't just to guide his tribute, but to turn her into a story the capital wants to follow. And Lucy Greybeard, the girl who sings with snakes, is his bet. The key to restoring the Snow's prestige. Their first pawn. From her cage in the zoo, Lucy observes everything. She sings, she provokes, but she also measures. She is an artist of survival, skilled at using her charisma as armor. Coriolanus approaches her with poisoned sweetness. "Why are you helping me?" she asks one evening, after being given bread and cheese. "Because if you win, I win," he answers without hesitation. But what begins as a calculation begins to mutate. Lucy's smile, her songs, her words that never fully reveal what she thinks, awaken something else. Fascination, possession, and also fear. While the tributes survive locked away, Panem watches without emotion. The games have lost their power. The audience is bored. Then Dr. Goll, his voice dripping with venom, imposes a new mechanism. The mentors will be able to interact more directly, even send food and medicine. "Make them more human," he says, "so it will hurt more when they die." Coriolanus begins manipulating interviews, plotting how Lucy Gray should dress, speak, move. He turns her story into a romantic tragedy. The girl who belongs to no district, the singer without a country. Meanwhile, Sejanus Plinth, her classmate, and the son of a nouveau riche in the capital, begins to show signs of dissent. Her tribute, Marcus, escapes. Coriolanus finds him badly wounded in the sewers, and in a desperate act to protect his image, he doesn't tell the truth. A lie that will seal future destinies. "You didn't say anything," Sejanus claims days later. "It wasn't my place. I couldn't risk everything for someone who was already dead." A rift opens between them. One ideology against another. Idealism against pragmatism. The tributes are led into the arena, a bombed-out ruin of a stadium. And the chaos begins. There is no structure, no constant cameras. It is brutal, primitive, blood and dust. Coriolanus, from above, watches. Lucy Gray survives with cunning. She sings to calm herself, to distract herself, to remind herself who she is. She sings even when she kills. And in the capital, people begin to look at her, to follow her. Dr. Gall watches Coriolanus with a crooked smile. He knows he's learning fast, that his mind not only absorbs, but adapts. One night, Lucy Gray is attacked by the Reaper, a vicious tribute. She survives, but is injured. Coriolanus decides to send her a package illegally, a handkerchief containing rue powder. Medicinal. Forbidden. He exposes himself. He risks, and wins. Lucy Gray, in an almost theatrical scene, sings with a cracking voice while covering her wounds. The capital falls silent. Everyone is watching. But the mask begins to crack. Coriolanus feels he can no longer distinguish whether he is helping her or for himself, whether his closeness is caring or a need for control. One night, after an interview in which Lucy shines like never before, he secretly visits her. "I don't trust you," she whispers, staring at him. "There's no need. Just stay alive." And she nods, because she knows that living is the most challenging act in this game without rules. Lucy Gray's singing becomes a weapon, a rope that pulls Coriolanus toward an abyss he doesn't yet fully understand. And as the deaths pile up, a new question arises. Who's playing with whom? Part 3. The Blood of the Spectacle. The arena transforms into a testing ground, not just for the tributes, but for the minds watching them. For Dr. Goll, for the Academy, and for Coriolanus Snow. Violence erupts without direction. There are no rules, no structure, only a fragmented feed that allows us to see, barely, the glimmers of horror. Marcus, the missing tribute from District 2, is captured. He is displayed bound, as a warning, an exemplary punishment. His execution is broadcast to the capital as part of the spectacle. The public reacts mordidly. The games matter again. Lucy Gray survives in the shadows. She moves like an animal that smells a trap in every corner. Reaper, Coral, Mizzen, one by one they fall. And she remains there, singing to herself, speaking to the snakes, connecting with nature as if she were part of something older than Panem. Coriolanus watches, calculates, desperates too. He needs her to win, not for love. Not only for that, but because his future, his place at the university, his prestige, his chance to rule, depends on Lucy Gray still breathing. And then he breaks another rule. In the middle of the night, he enters the arena. He searches for the satchel of Sejanus, who has disappeared in a foolhardy attempt to protest Marcus's death. Coriolanus doesn't do this out of friendship. He does it for protection. If the scandal breaks, it will all fall on him as well. When he emerges from the ruins, wounded and covered in dust, Dr. Gall is already waiting for him. Sometimes you have to get your hands dirty to clean up the future, he tells him. It's a warning and a lesson. Satyria Click, his mentor, praises him publicly. The press calls him the bold mentor. No one knows he has crossed illegal lines. No one, except Gall. The games become more brutal. New attractions are introduced. A sudden deluge floods parts of the arena. Mutated snakes are released among the remaining tributes. The audience applauds. The capital is awake again. Clementia, a classmate of Coriolanus, suffers an attack by the snakes after a failed experiment by Dr. Gall. Her skin becomes covered in sores. Her mind fractures. Coriolanus witnesses everything from a sealed room as yet another test, a human experiment. He understands. Loyalty in Panem is built on fear. And Lucy Gray, that slippery and contradictory creature, sings once more on the brink of collapse. Her voice draws the snakes, but they don't attack her. She recognizes them. They're hers, or she is theirs. And the capital sees magic, when in fact it's biology, chemistry, manipulation. The audience crowns her the favorite. And when only one enemy remains, Lil from District 7, Lucy Gray doesn't hesitate. She poisons her. She sends her off with a song. The audience cries. The capital applauds. Lucy Graybeard, tribute from District 12, has won the 10th Hunger Games. Coriolanus Snow, down on his luck mentor, has won something else. The respect of Dr. Gall, the attention of the elite, and the first trace of a power he's starting to like a little too much. But the rules have changed. The violation of the rules, his actions inside the arena, the traps he set in the dark, have left a trail. And someone is watching. What seems like a triumph is actually an open trap, and Snow doesn't know it yet, but his next destination won't be glory. It will be exile. Part 4. The Echo of District 12. The taste of victory fades quickly. When the cheers die down, only suspicion remains. Dean Highbottom, cold and methodical, calls Coriolanus into his office. He doesn't accuse him directly, but drops the weight of a veiled truth. Your intervention was irregular, he says with a poisoned smile. Do you think it's fair for a mentor to manipulate the games? Coriolanus tries to justify it, but he knows he's been caught. The punishment is not long in coming. He is sent as a peacekeeper apprentice to District 12, a demotion disguised as service, a sentence that seeks to erase him from the map. On the train to the poorest district of Panem, he is accompanied by Sejanus Plinth, the son of the millionaire who bought his ticket to the capital. Sejanus admires him, respects him, but also questions him. It can't all be power, Corio. There are more important things, he says, but Coriolanus sees only weakness in that statement. District 12 greets him with mud, coal, and silence. The station is corroded by rust. The streets smell of hopelessness. It's a land that doesn't surrender, but doesn't dream either. There, between the markets and the mines, he finds Lucy Gray again. She sings at the Broken Bone Tavern, alongside her band. The Coveys. Old songs, sad ballads, anthems that speak of loss and survival. She shines, but she's no longer a tribute. She no longer needs protection. And Coriolanus doesn't know how to fit in. "I'm not your project, Corio," Lucy Gray tells him one night. "I'm not your victory." He doesn't respond. He desires her. He needs her. But he doesn't know whether to trust her or to watch over her. Meanwhile, Sejanus sinks into his own abyss. He sympathizes with the district's rebels. He listens to their complaints, participates in secret meetings. He speaks of justice, of freedom, of breaking the system from within. "You're playing with fire," Coriolanus warns him, "and you're not immune to the flames." But Sejanus doesn't listen. He believes in good. He believes he can still change things without soiling himself. A public execution marks a point of no return. A friend of Sejanus's is hanged for treason. Coriolanus witnesses the scene. He takes notes. He learns, and he begins to write anonymous letters to the capital, denouncing the rebels. To his friend. Not out of hatred. Out of calculation. Lucy Gray begins to suspect. She sees him as colder. More vigilant. He is no longer the young man who admired her behind bars. He is someone who yearns to control even what he doesn't understand. And then, a shot changes everything. During a raid, Coriolanus kills a rebel. He faces the truth. He has just crossed an irreversible line. "Who are you really?" Lucy Gray asks him the next day. And he doesn't know. Or maybe he does. And he doesn't want to say it. The peacekeepers congratulate him. He gains respect. Sejanus looks at him in horror. "I thought you were different," he says. Coriolanus only responds with a terse phrase. Survival demands sacrifices. District 12, which seemed like exile, becomes the mirror in which he sees his true face. And he no longer recognizes himself. Part 5. Internal Enemy. District 12 doesn't forgive. It doesn't forget. And it doesn't trust. Coriolanus' snow begins to sink into an invisible web of tensions. His peacekeeper's uniform doesn't protect him from the judgment of the eyes on the streets, nor from the restlessness growing within him. His relationship with Lucy Gray is a taut thread, a mix of desire, power, and mutual suspicion. She caresses him with her voice, but pushes him away with her gaze. "I'm not a chess piece, Corio. You can't move me at will," she tells him one night, her voice choked with tavern smoke. Meanwhile, Sejanus Plinth crosses lines from which there is no return. Secret meetings with rebels. Recordings that Coriolanus finds hidden. Evidence that could drag them both to the gallows. Coriolanus hesitates. He watches him. He listens to him. And when the moment arrives, he decides. He betrays. He records a false confession from Sejanus and sends it to the capital. High treason. The punishment is clear, irrevocable. On the day of the execution, Coriolanus is present. He feigns horror. He feigns confusion. "I didn't know you'd gone so deep," he whispers to his friend's corpse. A lie. The pain of loss mixes with the dark satisfaction of having eliminated a threat. An ideological nuisance. A reflection of what he is no longer. Innocent. Lucy Gray begins to drift away. She senses him changed. Stiffer. Colder. "You knew," he asks one night. "Know what?" "That they would kill him." He falls silent. The tension escalates. Love turns to vigilance. Kisses taste of gunpowder. Promises dissolve like ash. But there is a plan. A way out. Lucy Gray suggests they flee. Leave Panem. Cross the border into the unknown. Live free, far from the capital, far from District 12. "You don't have to go down that road," she whispers. "We can be something else." And for a moment, Coriolanus hesitates. But he's been feeding the beast for too long. He runs with it into the woods. With a backpack, a gun, and too many buried truths, they walk along the damp paths of the forgotten land, haunted by the ghosts they left behind. But something snaps. Coriolanus finds the tape recorder in Sejanus's backpack. His crime. The dead voice of his friend, repeating the betrayal he himself planted. And then he decides. The elimination of the evidence, the return to the capital. And if Lucy Gray tries to stop him, well, that can be solved too. The forest becomes a hunting ground. Lucy Gray disappears. Lucy, she screams into the rain. No one answers, only the echo of her own choice. He fires into the void. He hears her song one last time. And then silence. He can't find her body, or her shadow, and that will haunt him for years. Coriolanus emerges from the forest, covered in mud, with the recorder buried, and his soul sold. Part 6. The Silent Betrayal. The forest left its mark on him, not just from the rain or the dried mud between his boots, but from the hollow Lucy Gray left when she disappeared. He'll never know if he lives or dies. He'll never know if she fled, or if she deceived him until the very last moment. But that doesn't matter now. Coriolanus returns to the district with a story tailored to his specifications. Sejanus died of treason. He, out of bravery, stopped him. His word is law, and no one dares to challenge it. Dr. Gall receives his report at the Capitol with a cutting smile. You knew how to decide, he tells him. That is true power. And as a reward, he's rehabilitated. He's reinstated. He's given an assistant position at the university. The first thing he does is eliminate the last piece of evidence, Sejanus's tape recorder. He throws it into the river. He watches it sink beneath the currents, like an act of baptism. The boy who doubted no longer exists. Now there is a young man who knows that power is not inherited. It is bitten off from the world. Dean Highbottom, however, does not forget. He regards him with weary, accusing eyes, a defeated man consumed by his own past. Coriolanus confronts him. Why does he hate me so much? Highbottom reveals a secret. He was the one who designed the Hunger Games, years ago, on a drunken night. An absurd idea that was stolen by Dr. Gall, and turned into a machine of death. And you, he says, his voice shaking, are the perfect heir to that horror. Snow doesn't respond. He only watches. And then he decides to silence that voice forever. A dose of poison. Undetectable. Silent. Highbottom dies without scandal. A clean closure. One less threat. Meanwhile, his grandmother celebrates the promotion. The Snow family has a name again. Tigress watches from the shadows, still loyal, still useful, though no longer entirely trusting. Are you okay, Corio? She asks one night. He smiles, icy. I've never been better. And it's true. At his desk, Coriolanus Snow begins writing an essay on how to improve the Hunger Games. More control, more spectacle, more blood, all in the service of order. In his mind, the capital shouldn't fear the districts. It should own them, shape them. Lucy Gray's voice still haunts his dreams, a faceless song emerging from the forest. But he wakes, and everything is under control. Betrayal doesn't hurt when it becomes a habit. Part 7. The Birth of the Tyrant. Nothing remains of the young man who once dreamed of changing the world from a golden pedestal. Coriolanus Snow doesn't dream. He plans. With his place at the university secure, he walks the halls as if he already rules. The capital accepts him, embraces him, and he, for the first time, feels like he belongs. But the price has been high. Sejanus hangs like a silent specter in its memory. Lucy Gray is a ghost singing from the forest shadows. Highbottom rests in the earth, overcome by a nameless poison. And despite everything, Coriolanus feels no guilt. He feels purpose. Dr. Gall guides him now like a new mentor, challenges him, shapes him, tempts him. The games are only the beginning, he tells him. Panem needs more than control. It needs fear. It needs someone who understands how to use chaos. And he understands it better than anyone. Tigress, his cousin, watches him from a distance. She no longer recognizes him. The sweet boy, desperate for a clean shirt, is gone. In his place is a hard, cold stare, a sharp silence. What did you do with Lucy Gray? She asks one night. He doesn't answer. Not because he doesn't know what to say, but because he's learned that silence is a more powerful weapon than the truth. He knows Lucy Gray defied him. that she could have loved him. But she also knew, in that final moment, that she was too free to belong to him. And that made her an enemy. The memory of her disappearance is still fresh. Sometimes he thinks he hears her in a bird's song. Sometimes, when the wind blows hard, he thinks he sees her in the trees. But when he blinks, she's gone. Is she dead? Did she escape? He'll never know. And deep down, that doubt haunts him more than any truth. But it doesn't stop him. Dr. Gull's voice, like a sweet poison, shows him the way. Are you ready for the next step? And Snow nods. He begins writing laws, designing punishments, imagining futures, a new Panem. One where loyalty isn't required, it's imposed. The capital will become the undisputed heart of a nation based on control, fear, and tradition. He will be its architect and its shadow. In the final chapter, as the capital's sun rises over the rebuilt buildings, Coriolanus Snow gazes at his reflection. He no longer sees a boy. He sees a symbol, a president, a tyrant in the making, a man who killed innocents to embrace order. Thus begins his rise and his moral fall. And though he is not yet the dictator history will know, it is already impossible to stop what he has begun. End of Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Get the book at planetalibro.com.